Dear students, in the previous classes we have learned about the structure of ear and mechanism of hearing and also the mechanisms for the determination of pitch and loudness of sound. Today we are going to study about the pathway for carrying auditory information from the ear to the brain. The auditory pathway is formed of the nerves and their connections that carry auditory information from the ear to the auditory cortex in the brain. The auditory information is formed in the hair cells in the organ of corti in the form of neural signals, and these neural signals are carried by the 8th cranial nerve or the vestibulocochlear nerve to the primary auditory cortex for sensory perception. The auditory pathway is comprised of these different components. Let us see the details about this. First, the auditory information in the form of neural signals are carried by the neurons of the vestibulocochlear nerve or the auditory nerve. Auditory nerves emerge from both the ears and connect to the brain. Just before entering into the brain stem, there is a spiral ganglion which is actually an assemblage of cell bodies of neurons outside the brain. From the spiral ganglion, the auditory nerve is entering into the brain via the brain stem. As it enters into the brain stem, each auditory nerve from both the ears divides into two main branches. Each branch then goes to separate dorsal and ventral cochlear nuclei. From the cochlear nuclei, the nerves go to the superior olivary nuclei. The superior olivary nucleus receives input from both right and left cochlear nuclei. It is the point in the brain where the binaural cues or the sensory input from both the ears are received for the first time. From the superior olivary nucleus, nerves are going to the nucleus of lateral lemniscus. From there, the neural signals are carried to the inferior colliculus. It is the primary auditory center in midbrain. The neural outputs from inferior colliculi are carried to the medial geniculate nuclei of the thalamus. The medial geniculate nuclei relays auditory signals to the primary auditory cortex located in the temporal lobe of the brain. This is the cortical area for auditory perception. Here, the auditory information is processed and analyzed for auditory perception. That is all about auditory pathway.